I've relied for so much of my life on excellent mentors,
Right.
from a very young age and still now, in order to make best decisions possible with the information I had. And rarely were they available at 4 a.m. sometimes, but not on a frequent basis. And they fatigue like anybody else, and they have their own stuff like anybody else, baggage events in their life, et cetera. What you're describing is a sort of AI coach or therapist of sorts that hopefully would learn to identify our best self and encourage us to be our best self. And when I say best self, I don't mean that in any kind of pop psychology way. I mean, I could imagine AI very easily knowing, how well I slept the night before and what types of good or bad decisions I tend to make at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I've only had 5 hours of sleep, or maybe just less REM sleep the night before. It might encourage me to take a little more time to think about something. Might give me a little tap on the wrist through a device that no one else would detect to, refrain from something.
It's never going to judge you. It's never going to be resentful. It's never going to be upset that you didn't listen to it. Right? It's never going to go on vacation. It's going to be there for you. Like I think this is the way people are going to live. It's going to start with kids, and then over time it's going to be adults. And the way people are going to live is they're going to have a friend, therapist, companion, mentor, coach, teacher, right, assistant, and that, or by the way, maybe multiple of those. It may be that we're actually talking about 6 different personas interacting, which is a whole another possibility. But they're going to have a committee, a committee, exactly. Actually, different personas, and maybe by the way, when there are difficult decisions to be made in your life, maybe what you want to hear is the argument among the different personas. And so you're just going to grow up. You're just going to have this in your life, and you're going to always be able to talk to it, and always be able to learn from it, and always be able to help it make and like it's going to be a symbiotic relationship. I think it's going to be a much better way to live. I think people are going to get a lot out of it.
What modalities will it include? So I can imagine my phone has this engine in it, this AI companion, and I'm listening in headphones as I walk into work, and it's giving me some, not just encouragement, some warnings, some thoughts that things that I might ask Mark Andreessen today that I might not have thought of, and so on. I could also imagine it having a more human form. I could imagine it being tactile, having some haptics, so tapping to remind me so that it's not going to enter our conversation in a way that it interferes or distracts you, but I would be aware, things of that sort. I mean, how many different modalities are we going to allow these AI coaches to approach us with? And is anyone actually thinking about the hardware piece right now? Because I'm hearing a lot about the software piece. What does the hardware piece look like?
Yeah, so this is where Silicon Valley is going to kick in. So the entrepreneurial community is going to try all of those, right? And by the way, the big companies and startups are going to try all those. And so there's big companies that are working, the big companies that have talked about a variety of these, including, heads-up displays, AR, VR, kinds of things. There's lots of people doing voice. The voice is a real possibility. It may just be an earpiece. There's a new startup that just unveiled a new thing where it's actually they actually project. So you'll have like a pendant you wear on like a necklace, and it actually like projects, like literally it will like project images like on your hand or like on the table or on the wall in front of you. So like maybe that's how it shows up. There are people working on so-called haptic or touch-based kinds of things. There are people working on actually picking up nerve signals, like out of your arm, right? To be able to there's some science for being able to do basically like subvocalization. So maybe you could pick up that way, bone conduction, these are all going to be tried. So that's one question, is the physical form of it. And then the other question is the software version of it, which is like, okay, what's the level of abstraction that you want to deal with these things in? Like, right now it's like a question answer paradigm, right? So-called chatbot, like ask a question, get an answer, ask a question, get an answer. Like, well, you want that to go for sure to more of a fluid conversation. You want it to build up more knowledge of who you are, and you don't want to have to explain yourself a second time and so forth. And then you want to be able to tell it things like, well, remind me this, that, or, be sure and tell me when X. But then maybe over time, more and more, you want it actually deciding when it's going to talk to you, right? And when it thinks it has something to say, it says it, and otherwise it stays silent.
And normally, at least in my head, unless I make a concerted effort to do otherwise, I don't think in complete sentences. So presumably these AI, these machines could learn my style of fragmented internal dialogue. And maybe I have an earpiece and I'm walking in and I start hearing something, but it's some, advice, et cetera, encouragement, discouragement. But at some point, those sounds that I hear in an earphone are very different than seeing something or hearing something in the room. We know this based on the neuroscience of musical perception and language perception. Hearing something in your head is very different. And I could imagine at some point that the AI will cross a precipice where if it has inline wiring to actually control neural activity in specific brain areas, and I don't mean very precisely, even just stimulating a little more prefrontal cortical activity, for instance, through the earpiece. A little ultrasound wave now can stimulate prefrontal cortex in a non-invasive way. That's being used clinically and experimentally. That the AI could decide that I need to be a little bit more context aware, right? This is something that is very beneficial for those listening that are trying to figure out how to navigate through life. It's like, know the context you're in and know the catalog of behaviors and words that are appropriate for that situation and not others. And, this would go along with agreeableness perhaps, but strategic agreeableness, right? Context is important. There's nothing diabolical about that. Context is important. But I could imagine the AI recognizing, we're entering a particular environment. I'm now actually going to ramp up activity in prefrontal cortex a little bit in a certain way that allows you to be more situationally aware of yourself and others, which is great unless I can't necessarily short circuit that influence because, at some point the AI is actually then controlling my brain activity and my decision making and my speech. Right? I think that's what people fear is that once we cross that precipice, that we are giving up control to the artificial versions of our human intelligence.
And look, I think we have to decide. We collectively and we as individuals, I think, have to decide exactly how to do that. And this is the big thing that I believe about AI. There's just a much more, I would say, practical view of the world than a lot of the panic that you hear. It's just like, these are machines. They're able to do things that increasingly are like the things that people can do in some circumstances, but these are machines. We build the machines. We decide how to use the machines. When we want the machines turned on, they're turned on. When we want them turned off, they're turned off. So I think that's absolutely the kind of thing that the individual person should always be in charge of.